listening to SuperPower Mommas on the SuperPower Up podcast, the show that embraces the art of soulful parenting.
Hello and welcome. I'm Laura Greco and you're listening to SuperPower Mommas, and we're so excited to have you here. Thank you for stopping in.
You're welcome.
I am so excited to have Tracey Severns. I'm sorry, how am I saying your name? Severns?
Tracey Severns.
Severns with me today. I know Tracey because of a women's, I'm almost reluctant to say networking group, but we are a wonderful group of women who get together and share our brilliance and our different things that we work through as women and moms and entrepreneurs. And I met her through that and heard her speak. Tracey has dedicated her career to a service of students, teachers, and administrators since 1992. And today we're talking on the topic, what is confidence? And as a mama, how do we model this for our children? Tracey has also worked, as I mentioned here, she has been served as a classroom aide, a special education teacher, a vice principal, a principal, director of student performance, superintendent, adjunct professor, and chief academic officer in the New Jersey Department of Education. She is currently the Leadership and Learning Strategist for Rutgers Graduate School of Education Center and Effective School Practices. And she is a mom of 2 grown children. And we're so excited to have you here. So welcome.
Thank you,
Tracey. Good. So the way we always start off our show is to ask the first question about your superpower. So what is your mama superpower? What is your really you're a mama to so many, right? So what is your superpower?
I would say that my superpower is the ability to reach and teach all kinds of kids. Over the course of 31 years in education, I have had the honor and the privilege and the challenge of working and learning alongside thousands of students. Most of my career was, well, I don't know about most, but much of my career was with middle school kids. And as everyone knows, sometimes they can be harder to love. I'll put it that way. Sometimes parents said to me, I'm so glad I get to send them to you all day because they are challenging at home. And they certainly are. But someone needs to love them, and I was happy that was me. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I feel like middle school kids in particular are trying to figure out who am I and how do I fit into the world. And when we guide kids along that pathway, I think it's very, very important. They're defining themselves, they're seeing where they fit into the world, and they're looking forward to a future that hopefully gives them a sense of enthusiasm, that they look forward to the people, the young adults that they will grow into. So, so I would say if my superpower is connecting with kids, is to understand them on a personal level, connect with them on an intellectual level, but also just in a way that says, I see you, I get you, I know you, I love you, and I'm here for you.
Oh, I love it. I love it. You speak to my heart in every word you say. Beautiful, beautiful. And I love that you've agreed to come on the show, because I think for us listeners as moms, you are a mom yourself, but you being in the system the way you've been, have a very interesting perspective to share with parents that may be an insight that we don't always get a window into, right?
Yeah.
And I know in our topic, like, what is confidence and how do we model this for our kids, and really it starts with moms first, right? So how have you used this superpower in your work, but also in, your home? Like, what have you learned that has helped you raise your two children?
So one of the things, one of the things that I've learned is that when you create kind of an analogy or metaphor, sometimes that's a way for people to really understand things in a different way. So I've always believed that effective parenting and effective teaching and leadership in schools, when you work with kids, I think the way to do it is like bowling with bumpers. So have you ever gone bowling and they put those bumpers in the gutters?
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's what I love about that. It's the perfect balance of latitude and limits. So here's what I believe is the role of a parent and an educator when working with kids. We need to create for them a lane that gives them some room. There needs to be the opportunity for agency, for some choice, for some autonomy, but not so much where it's not so wide that they fall off and land in the gutter, if you will, where they go to a place where you can't recover. And at the same time, we also can't create a lane that is so narrow that there's no room to make choices and to experience the consequences that come from our decisions. And so when we kind of provide that space where there's room to live and to learn, that so much so many of the most powerful lessons are those where we have stumbled or struggled or maybe even fell. And I think that our challenge as the adults is not to try to save our kids, not to try to protect them or shield them from any discomfort or anything that is, that causes at all, any level of frustration or struggle, but to be there on the other side, to lend them a hand, and then to ask them the question, what might you do better or differently next time? I think that we are, because we love our kids, our inclination is to protect and to shield and to guard from all things that may be at all uncomfortable, upsetting, or difficult. And I feel that when we do that, we really rob our kids of the opportunity to learn, that it is in the challenge, it's in the struggle where the greatest learning takes place.
Love all of this, and we're going to get into that a bit more in our conversation, but right now we have to take a break. Thank you so much for sharing that, though, because our tendency, right, to love is to protect. I love that you said that, because that's so true. Like, we equate love with protection, and yet it's really in the experience that they get to learn, and that actually ends up being a protection to them also. Isn't it? So before we go for this break, please share where you would like people to find you and experience your website. I loved your website, by the way, and there's great clips for videos to look at to understand better what Tracey has learned through the years and been sharing in the school system. So where can they find you?
So I can be found at teach4, and it's the number 4, results.com. So I'll spell it out, teach, TEACH, the number 4, RESULTS.com.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much. And everybody stay with us, because we'll be right back. You've been listening to SuperPower Mommas with Laura Greco and Tracey Severns. And we've been talking on the topic of what is confidence? And as mamas, how do we model this for our children? So hold on.
Are you here to change the world? Do you talk about things like vibration, frequency, awakening, and consciousness? Are you pretty sure you have superpowers? The SuperPower Net is unlike normal coaching programs and conscious communities. We provide training, intuitive guidance, peer-to-peer learning, intensive one-on-one coaching, and a high vibrational network of people just like you. When you join the net, you get 24/7 access to a collaborative group of people who support you as you master your personal power and unlock your superpowers. If you're ready to use your superpowers to change the world, then join the SuperPower Net today. Visit superpowerexperts.com/thenet to learn more.
Welcome back. I'm Laura Greco, your host at SuperPower Mommas, and I'm so excited that you're here as we are talking with Tracey Severns about the topic of what is confidence. And as mamas, how do we model this for our children? And before we went on the show together, Tracey and I were talking, and she brought up a little bit about confidence and another word that maybe you would like to expand on, Tracey?
Sure. I think that when we give our children the gift of productive struggle, and I think that's important to think about. What if we saw it not as, for example, that we are not attending to our responsibilities of protecting and nurturing our kids? What if when we allow them to struggle, what if we viewed productive struggle as a gift, as an opportunity to grow our sense of both confidence and competence? Mm-hmm. When we let students and children figure things out on their own, what they feel then, what they experience is a deep sense of ownership, of ability, of independence, autonomy, of ability. When we are too quick to save our kids, I think it really communicates, perhaps inadvertently, a message that says you're really not capable. I am the one who's capable, and I will do it for you. What I say to parents, for example, I've devised this test. I used to do a workshop called How to Tame the Homework Monster, because it is often in the home, in the homework, in that environment where kids are doing their homework, that parents sometimes overfunction for their kids. Yeah. And what I said to people is that I've devised a very simple test so that you can determine if you're helping too much. And here it is. Okay, you ready? Here it is. Okay. If you find yourself holding the pencil, you're probably helping too much. And parents often quickly realize that, if when a child is struggling with, for example, a learning task, that you come in and you slide that little pencil out of their little hand and you start to do it, what you're really saying is, you can't, and I can, and I'll do it for you. And there is a real loss in that moment. That what I've said to parents is, I get it if you want to help. And I understand that your child may be frustrated, but here's what I suggest. Get your own pencil. And perhaps if you feel the need to write on your own paper, and then let the child do it themselves. That there really is great power in letting the child see that they can, persevere, they can stick with it and get to the other side, and then look back with a sense of pride and accomplishment that they did do it, that they were able. And this is a really critical life lesson. Yeah.
Yes. And I want to reiterate the test, because I love this. It's so simple, right? If the test is, if the pencil ends up in your hand as a parent, you're helping too much.
Right.
Love it. Love it. And all that you shared there. Oh my goodness. And I can remember, that was one thing with my children. I let them come to me with questions, and then I let them do their homework. Mm-hmm. It was fine that they came to me, but really I didn't take responsibility for when it got done or anything. I let them move through it themselves. And I found that they were very responsible with their homework because I wasn't intervening. Mm-hmm.
Well, kids are smart. I mean, let's face it. People are smart. If what we teach people through our actions is, if you wait long enough, if you look at me with those sad Sarah McLachlan puppy dog commercial eyes, and then I rescue you, then there is some very, as I say, powerful learning taking place. What the dynamic is teaching the child is, if I hold out long enough, you'll do it for me.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a danger in that, like I said, because then what? Think about all the times in life where we're called upon to figure it out on our own, that we really need to build a sense of our own competence, which I think is gained through struggle, and coming out on the other side and seeing I am okay. That's where confidence also happens, that those experiences become generalizable to other tasks, contexts, or settings. So a child who says, well, it was, that was hard when I tried to learn to ride my bike, but that same stick-to-itiveness, that grit, tenacity, perseverance is something perhaps now I can apply to this hard math problem, that this is something I can use with this challenging text that I'm reading, with this presentation that I have to give. I can do it. So when we help children change their self-talk so that they see themselves as able, then that carries forward into new experiences that they then will tend to face with a greater confidence.
Yeah. And it just hit me while you were talking. I love all of this. And I think it's very valuable information. But it just hit me, when we talk about faith, I love the definition of faith that's found in the Bible, where it says, faith is the assured expectation of things hoped for, the evident demonstration of realities though not beheld. And the evidence is in past experiences that, yes, I was able to do this, therefore I have faith in myself that I can also overcome this next thing, even though it feels scary and hard.
Yes. Yeah.
I love that. It's a very interesting, thing to look at. I'd like to turn our attention a little bit now to mom, right? Moms who are very dedicated as parents also find the struggle in these kinds of things that we're talking about that right now. So how important do you feel that the autonomy of a mom is to her modeling what we're speaking of to her children?
Well, I think it's critically important. They cut the cord after birth for a reason. I mean, we all have our own paths to walk, our own journeys. And I think there is real value in seeing ourselves as moving through the world independently, and yet perhaps still together. But it's not a codependence. It's not a, you are, this extension of me where there's no space between us. I think it's very important for all kids, and our girls in particular, to see that we are willing to live our own brave lives, that we're willing to take chances. We're willing to say, that was hard and I stuck with it and I made it, or to say to ourselves, to say out loud after maybe taking a misstep or making a mistake, I shouldn't have done it that way. In retrospect, I would have done it differently. And to show that we are very human. I think one of the a real hazard is to try to put forth an image of perfection to our kids, because that becomes a standard that to which they feel they can't rise. And so I think to really always stay humble and human and to model your own struggle will increase the likelihood that your kids are comfortable engaging in struggle as well.
Oh, very, very nice. And I love how you blended the two together, the mom's struggle helps the child to see that, yeah, that's okay. We can struggle and we can still succeed and move forward with grace, basically, and learn from it. Love, love, love that. You know, the work you're doing is really big because you're working in the school systems and looking to create change. And there's a lot of listeners out there that struggle with the school system as it has been. You know, through the years, I hear a lot of different talk in a lot of different ways. And I also have my own views on all of that. I put forth for girls through school. So how do you see this work that you're doing in a very large scale? Like, what do you see? What's your vision for what you're doing for the future for our children?
Well, some of the work that I've been really excited about lately is based in Russ Quaglia's research on the importance of student voice. So the idea of really engaging student voice and choice in schools is very important. And so I've been doing some work with educators throughout New Jersey on, how do we give kids choice, options? How do we teach? We talk in schools often. Many schools have as a mission to build lifelong learners. And then you look for evidence of that in the classroom, in the hallways, in the school, and it's hard to find. So what do lifelong learners do? Lifelong learners ask their own questions. They pursue their own journey of discovery. They weigh the credibility of their sources, and they come to their own conclusions. So when in schools when we shift our concept of teaching from telling, where kids then are put in the position of remember and regurgitate, meaning, parrot back to you on the test exactly what you told me on Tuesday, that's a very low level of engagement that doesn't require a lot of thinking. It doesn't require deep understanding. It requires only remembering and as I said, regurgitate or parroting back. Right. When we shift the dynamic in the classroom, where we really put students in the role of the learner, where we embed inquiry into the classroom, and we put children in the role of the inquisitors, so to speak, asking their own questions about, well, what was the Cold War all about? Why was it cold? Who was involved? Is it over? Is it who was involved? When we teach kids to ask their own questions and pursue their own learning, then it adds a level of agency, of personalization, of engagement that goes far beyond the compliance model that tends to dominate, I think, in far too many schools. And kids as young as kindergarten can be engaged in conversations about the learning. And we don't have to sacrifice rigor or the curriculum by any means. It's just that we view ourselves more as partners in the learning process than that other dynamic where the teacher is the center and the student is a passive recipient. When we change that dynamic and role and we say to kids, okay, well, what have you learned? And where do you see you are? Where do you think you are now in relation to the, what constitutes mastery? And what would you do differently? What goals do you want to set? I think we have to change our concept of who is the teacher and who is the learner. And what I like about Russ Quaglia's work is he has what he calls an aspirations framework. And he says in our schools, we need to be able to listen to, learn from, and lead with students. And I think that's so powerful because it causes us to reflect on our mindset when we engage with young people. That everyone has something to teach us. That when we view ourselves as being able to move more fluidly among the role of teacher, student, and leader, then our schools change in very profound ways.
This is very powerful. One of the things, and it speaks so incredibly to what I also am all about when it comes to parenting and moms and their relationship with themselves, because we have been raised as moms and as, grandparents and so forth in a culture that you're describing as a shift is a necessary next step. And so therefore, how inquisitive are we about the things that we're experiencing in our own lives as moms,
Mm-hmm.
because it really starts at, yes, the teachers, of course, want to do that. But even at home, this is something that when we shift our thinking as parents from about ourselves, like reacting to something all the time the same way, like, is there a question here that we can ask first?
Mm-hmm.
Rather than, being dart into a reaction? Is there something going on that we're not understanding? Are we just triggered by old patterns?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like this is a whole big circle of influence that we're talking about here.
Oh, absolutely. And I've been doing a lot of reading and thinking about the power of questions
Mm-hmm.
Questions are just incredibly powerful when they are genuine and honest inquiry, not when they're stump you questions or got you questions, but when they come from the whole heart. Questions are really, really so incredible. And as parents, I think if we did more questioning, like more wondering and inquiry with kids rather than so much telling, I think that it would open up lots of avenues for learning.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I can remember with my younger ones, and I've also mentioned to some of the moms I work with, we can ask questions. The kids want to do things that maybe are not, in harmony with their end goals. We can ask that question.
Mm-hmm.
Is this taking you further or closer to where you really want to be?
Mm-hmm.
Some of these challenging things, like I want to go along with their friends, or, some of these challenging questions to ask them, where do you see yourself? Where do you want to go? Right? And it's a great question for us to ask ourselves too, as parents, where do we want to be? What do we want to for our family really in the end? And then that, but basically, what they call that, where you reverse engineer, you know where you want to go. So now you go back and say, okay, well, how do we get there?
Right.
What's the plan? And of course, making room for all the mistakes and so forth that come along the way, because they are our learning curve. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This has really been a wonderful, wonderful discussion. I'm so glad that you joined us. You did give a tip already about the pencil, and I love that. But is there anything else in our discussion that you'd like to add in before we close out the show?
I think if I have one message, I would like to say that we need to have a greater sense of faith and belief in the competence of kids. I feel too often that we don't hold really high expectations. I want to say it like this, that I believe kids are capable of far more than we give them credit for.
Mm-hmm.
And when we come from this place of belief in their resilience, in their competence, in their ability, that we build stronger, more capable kids, that this is, the world has a lot to offer. Some of it's good, some of it's not too good, but we have to equip children with a belief in themselves and with the skills, the knowledge, the faith in their ability to continue to become that next best version of themselves and to achieve great things on their own. That doesn't mean we're not there for them, but we don't do it for them. We don't have to run ahead and smooth the road, that we can let them live that journey, be there for them.
Mm-hmm.
But the real opportunity comes in allowing them the grace to both succeed and to fail.
Yeah. Which is true for us all. Thank you so much, Tracey, for joining us today. And thank you, listeners, for being here. You've been listening to SuperPower Mommas with myself, Laura Greco, and Tracey Severns. And if you want to know more about what she just shared, I encourage you to go to her website. She has a video in there called Something About Expectations. And would you share your website again, please, before we sign off?
Why, certainly. It is teach4results.com. And if you search Dr. Tracey Severns, you will certainly find me.
That is so wonderful. We've been speaking on the topic of what is confidence. And as mamas, how do we model this for our children? And I just want to remind you, moms, you are beautiful and you are doing such a tremendous job. So love yourselves for the treasures that you are. And really just look to the next step. Stay in inquiry and discover your superpowers and go out and be you. That's what your children, that's what they need from you. All right. Till next time. Bye-bye.
Are you ready to discover your superpowers? Go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the Superpower Quiz today.